Hello and welcome to Friday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. And firstly, I'd like to just give a big thank you to all those who've listened to and commented on our pilot podcast that we released yesterday on the channel. Full marks for whoever it was who suggested we should have called it Chatting the Cryptic. I think we'll take you up on that suggestion. And we've been pretty overwhelmed, to be honest, by the feedback. We thought that it was a fairly mad idea to have two people talk about Sudoku in a podcast, but it does seem that people want to hear more of it. So what we're going to do is we are going to release it on the sort of major podcast outlets like Apple Podcasts, Google and Spotify. And we will try and make more of them. I'm not sure how many more, but we will make more. Now, what have I got for you today, Sudoku-wise? Well, we've got this beautiful looking puzzle by the wonderful constructor Codec, one of my very favourite constructors in the world. I've just recently been testing the Sudokus that Codec's made for our upcoming Arrows app, and they've just been a joy. This one is called Bahamas. I think you can probably see why. Look at all these islands in the ocean. Makes me feel warm just looking at it, and I'll read you the rules in just a second. Firstly, we need to apologise actually. Last night Mark had some fairly hefty glitches with his computer that rendered the last 20 minutes of last night's video completely unwatchable. We had to take the video down, I'm afraid. He's been wearing his hair shirt today all day, although I think he secretly enjoys that. But he will be back later tonight, hopefully with a video that works. And in fact, I wanted to share with you a comment that we got on. Mark made a video on Wednesday. It was called something like Why I Love Bifurcation. And Esoteric Videos made this comment, which we thought was wonderful. I'm pretty sure my life has been nothing but a big bifurcation down the wrong path. It's sort of witty and tragic at the same time. So Esoteric Videos, you won comment of the day. Well done. Anything else to mention? Happy birthday Cheel Beanhacker, the man behind the Cracking the Cryptic spreadsheet. If you've never looked at that, it's well worth a look. It basically chronicles and categorises every single video we've ever made. And Cheel is an all-round good guy and a super fast solver as well. So Cheel, we hope you have a great day. 1st of May. 1st of May is tomorrow. Good grief. Right, so Matches Martinka's Puzzle Hunt stroke Sudoku Hunt. This is going live tomorrow. It is fantastic, trust me. So if you're a patron of the channel, go over to Patreon. What time are we releasing it? We'll release it at 6 o'clock UK time. And the first correct solution we receive will receive some new merch. So good luck to anybody who wants to compete for that. I can tell you, if we get any solutions tomorrow, i.e. before midnight UK time tomorrow, I will be seriously impressed. And anybody who completes the hunt will get a shout out on the channel because they will deserve it. So we're really looking forward to seeing how the comments are on that hunt, I can tell you. And that's it. Let's get to the rules of Codec's puzzle. So what's going on? We have normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits must sum to the small clue in the top left corner of the cage. Digits cannot repeat within a cage. No swimming. Okay, no swimming is the final part of the instructions. I think that's a joke. And in fact, what I'm going to do probably is get rid of the colours because I'm guessing they're only going to confuse me. So we have a rather more bland grid to work with. Anyway, do have a go. The way to play, of course, is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. And we can... well, the first thing that strikes me actually is there are not that many cages, and most of them don't occupy much real estate. Lots of 2-cell cages, and is it only 2 3-cell cages? It's classic Codec, but i.e. it's basically impossible. Right, can we use the secret? The secret, if you're not aware of the secret, where have you been? But basically the secret is to do with the fact that if you complete correctly a row of a Sudoku, or indeed a column of a Sudoku, or indeed a box of a Sudoku, that box, row or column will contain all of the digits from 1 to 9 exactly once each. Now if you add up 1 to 9, you will get 45. So I know this row adds to 45, but I also know that those 6 cells add up to 34. So I know by using the power of subtraction that those three squares must add up to 11. 45 minus 34 is 11. That is absolutely useless though. Have we got anything better in this row? 25, 20. No, we haven't. Those three add up to 20. That also doesn't look helpful. Okay. What else can we see? Oh, right. Box 7. 4 cells that sum to 29. Well, there is only one way of doing that if you cannot repeat a digit, and you can't because these are all in the same box. So these squares have got to be 5, 7, 8 and 9, and the question to ask is, where does the 5 go? Well, you can't put a 5 in the 15 cage because it will have to be accompanied with a 10, and we can't put 10 in, so the 5 must go in the 14 cage, which means there's a 7, 8 in the 15 cage, which means there's a 3, 9 in the 12 cage, look, because that can no longer be 5, 7 or 4, 8. Okay, I'm not seeing what that means. But we now know, right, that's interesting. We've got a 5, 9, 14 cage here pointing at the other 14 cage up at the top. So this 14 cage can't also be a 5, 9 cage, or that square would have no valid value. So this must be 6 and 8, which looks like it's immediately interacting with the 10 cages, which now can't be 4, 6 or 2, 8, so must be 1, 9 or 3, 7 in some order. And now we know that those three squares are 2, 4 and 5, which do add up to 11. So we are at least getting pencil marks, even though we're not getting any actual digits in the grid. So what do we do next? We've got, look, 8s are aligning in column 1 and column 2. So where does 8 go in column 3 is the question to ask. It can't go in those three squares or these three squares. So it must be in one of those three positions. We don't know if that's got 3 or 9 in it. If we did know, we might be able to lock a 3 or a 9 into those three squares. What am I meant to do now? We've got 1, 2, 4, 5 and 6 to place along there. Rather annoyingly, all of those digits can go in the 9 cage. Now 5 is restricted in that. Right, there might be something we can do with 5s. That is suspicious, actually. Let's just take a quick stare at this. Is 5 restricted in row 7 is the question I'm asking myself. Not very much, I don't think. What I've noticed is 5 is in one of those three squares. If you look at it, in fact, it's a bit sus, this. A bit suspicious. Exactly the same layout of these 2 cell cages in row 1 and row 4. Now, the interesting thing about row 4 is, where does the 5 go? You can't put 5 in a 10 cage because it would have to have another 5 along with it, and you can't put it in a 5 cage because it would have to have a 0 with it. So the 5 in row 4 is in exactly the same columns as the 5 in row 1. Now, I'm just interested in, that can't be a 5, this square. Don't think there's a problem with this being a 5. So I thought it might be a swordfish. A swordfish would be locking 5s into just these positions in 3 different rows. It doesn't seem to work though. 5 can be in all 4 of the final positions, unless I'm missing. Is there a reason that 5 can't be in all 4 of these positions? Oh, good grief, no. Right. Good grief. Right, I don't think I've ever seen this in a killer Sudoku before, but rather beautiful. In fact, I've just realised this is called Bahamas. There's a lot of sea in this puzzle, and we have ourselves a very rare fish indeed, the finned swordfish, making an appearance in the puzzle. How on earth am I going to explain this? I have explained finned swordfishes on the channel before, but I would guess not for 2 years or something like that. So what is, in fact, this is going to give me this digit. Right, okay, I now see what is going on at the start of this puzzle. And the critical thing we need to think about is 5s, but it's complicated because... How am I to do this? There are two ways of thinking about the puzzle. There are two possibilities that basically exist in this puzzle. And what we'll do is we'll focus on row 7 to think about those two possibilities. Either the 5 in row 7 is in one of these two spaces, or it's in one of those two spaces. One of those things must be true. Now, if the 5 is in these two spaces, what can we say about this 6 cage? Well, if the 5 is here, we can clearly say this would be a 2-4 pair. So we're going to remember that. If the 5 is in these two spaces here, this 6 cage could not be 1-5 and would have to be 2-4. Now, the only other state of affairs that could exist in the correct solution to this puzzle is that the 5 is not in this domino, in which case look at row 7, you can see it would have to, 5s would have to be in these two squares. But the thing about these squares is that these create a swordfish on 5s in those positions. Now what, I hear you say, is a swordfish on 5s? Well, it's beautiful, really, and the way to think about, people get confused about swordfishes and X-wings because they don't think about them in the right way, but it's just basically asking the right question. So I'm going to ask you a facetious question. If you finish this puzzle correctly, how many 5s would you have put into column 3? 1. Don't put 2 in, don't put 0 in, it won't be correct. There is going to be 1 5 in this column. How many 5s are you thinking of putting in this column? Yep, 1 again. And how many 5s are you going to put in that column? Yep, 1 again. So we know that in a correct solution to this puzzle, those 3 columns have exactly 3 5s in them. Now, we know one of those 3 5s is definitely being contributed by row 1, because row 1's 5 is in one of those 3 columns. And we know the same thing about row 4. Row 4's 5 is definitely in one of those 3 columns. Now, on the hypothesis that the 5 in row 7 is in one of those 2 squares, we know row 7 is also contributing 1 5 to these 3 columns. So that's all the 5s we could possibly put into those 3 columns. We've got 1 from row 1, 1 from row 4 and 1 from row 7. So what we cannot do is put more 5s in. Could you put a 5 in here? No, because this would be a 4th 5 in those 3 columns, and that is nonsense. Don't do nonsense or you'll get the puzzle wrong. So the critical thing is we can now say, look at those 2 squares. If this swordfish was true, i.e. if the 5 in row 7 was in one of those 2 positions, could you put a 5 here? No, because it would be a 4th 5 in these columns. So this would be 2-4. So what we've done is we've used the so-called finned swordfish. This is the fin here. So we're able to say one of 2 things exists. Either the fin of the swordfish contains a 5, in which case we get a 2-4 pair, or the swordfish itself is true, in which case we get a 2-4 pair. So either way, the critical thing is that we can say at this point in the puzzle that this is a 2-4 pair, and that gives us this digit. Look, isn't that beautiful? It really is beautiful. So this square cannot be 2-4 anymore and has to be 5, and we get a digit, and that is a hard 1 digit. And what does it mean? It means that this is no longer a 5. It means this is no longer a 5. So we still don't know where the 5's going in row 7. It's in one of 3 places. 5 in box 6 is a little bit restricted because it can't go in the 2-cell 10 cage. Oh, no, hang on. Where do 2 and 4 go in row 7? They can't go in those 3 squares, so they must go in those 2 positions, which means this one is not 5 again. So now we've proved, in fact, that the 5 was in the fin of the swordfish. Don't know if we know. Don't think we do know which of those it's in. It could be in the 9 cage. Right, so we've got a 2-4 pair. Oh, look at that. I've got 2-4 pairs now in column 3 and column 6. Get rid of those. They shouldn't be purple anymore. I might highlight these actually just so that I can keep track of them. Why don't I do that? I'll make them green. One of these 2 squares is a 5. These 3 squares are 1, 3, 5 now, I think. Just, oh no, not 1, 3, 5. We've got a 3 already. 1, 6, 5. That's not 5. You can put a 6 in the 9 cage along with a 1 or a 2. 6, 5. So, okay. So we've made good progress, but now we seem to be a bit stuck. So, what should we do now? We should cry. What do we need in this box? We need 3, 7, 8 and 9. 7, 8 and 9. Okay, that might be important somehow. 2s and 4s. 7, 8 and 9. Sorry about this, I'm a bit stuck. 3, 7, 8 and 9. 5 here has to be in one of those squares. Oh, sorry, right. Right, the question we should be asking is where does 5 go in column 8? Because 5 is not in those squares, it's not in the 10 cage, it could be in the 9 cage, and is in the 9 cage because these 2 squares are 3, 7, 8 or 9 to complete this box. The 5 is definitely in one of those, in fact definitely in one of these 2 positions. So where does the 5 go in this column? It can only live in the 9 cage, and therefore the 9 cage is 1, 3, 5. That's the only option that will work. So those are 1, 3 or 5. This square is not 6. 1, 3, 5. This square is now not 1 or 3, so this square is not 7 or 9. Oh, beautiful. Right, okay, and now we've got a 3 in this domino. Where does the 3 go in box 9? It must go in these 2 squares. That fixes the domino at the top. That's a 1, 9 pair. This is now known to be a 3, 7 pair. That's no longer a 1. 3, where does 3 go in column 6? It can't go in those squares, it can't go in these squares, so 3 is in one of those 3 positions. Not sure if we know much about that. Oh, what did these 3 had to add up to 20, didn't they? So 3 would cause, that can't be 3, because I know one of those 3 squares is a 5. And 3 plus 5 would require the other cell to equal 12, which won't work. So this is not 3. So 3 is locked into one of those 2. Look at this. Look at the way this is working. So now 3s are locked into the same rows of the grid in boxes 5 and 6. So 3 is not there. 3 is not there. We know 3 can't go in here because, again, that means we can't put 5 into those 3 squares. So this is a 3, 7 pair. I love this. This is absolutely amazing. So now we've got a 7 in one of those 2 squares. Well, it's not this one because that would be a 3 and it would clash. So that's not a 7, and we have a 7 in the grid. So now there's a 7 in one of those squares. Right, okay, so that was interesting. What's that done for us? Has it finished the puzzle? I don't think so somehow. Oh, look, 3 being in this domino means this 5 cage is not 2, 3 anymore. That must be 1, 4. Right, okay, so this 10 cage is now 2-8 because it can't be 3-7, 1-9 or 4-6. So this is 2-8, and now we know, right, we know this is not 8, and we know the composition of these three squares now. That's got to be 5, 6 and 9 in some order. That's not 5. This one, I don't know if we know anything about. This one, I don't know if we know anything about. So, okay, we're still a bit stuck. Now, so presumably it must be something to do with the cages. It's either Sudoku that I've missed, which is very possible, or it's something to do with the cages that we've not yet used. See, even actually, let's think about 5 in box 1 because of this 5-9 pair. 5 is not there. It can never go in a 2-cell 10 cage, so 5 is on the left-hand side, which means it's on the right-hand side of box 4, which may or may not be useful. Okay. Do we know anything else about any of these cages? That is the question. I've got a horrible feeling I'm missing something very simple here. 9, yeah, I am. 9 in box 9 has to be in these two squares. So 9 is in one of 3 positions, is it? In box 6. These two squares are a 7-8 pair. That's nice. That gets me a 2 and an 8 in box 6. 8 is in one of those squares. 1, 3, 5. So this, right, okay, so now we need this domino here. We know the composition. That has to be a 4 and a 6, I think. But unfortunately, that also doesn't look like it's telling me what I need to know. 1, 3, 5. Oh dear, come on. 3. Right, yeah, look at 3s. There has to be a 3 in this domino as well. So this is now a 3-8 pair, and that might be useful because that forces the 7 to move into this position. And this 7 does diddly squat. It forces a 7 into these two squares, which doesn't do anything. But we do get that digit, I suppose. That must now be a 2. Good. And 2 here does nothing. This 10 cage now can't be 4-6 because that will give this cell a problem. So this 10 cage is not 3-7, it's not 4-6. Oh, lovely. Right, this square can't be a 2 because of our green 2-4 pair, and it can't be an 8 because there's already an 8 in the 14 cage. So this square is forced to be 1 or 9, I think, and that means we've got a 1-9 pair now in this domino, which... Oh, come on, you are kidding me. It doesn't do anything. Hang on, what doesn't it... It would do things, if I knew either of those squares, it might do something. Oh, is it the 11 cage then? Maybe I can lock some... If I could lock 1 into the 11 cage, it would work, wouldn't it? Because that would force 1 out of this square. So let's try and do that. The thing about a 3-cell 11 cage is it must have a 1 or a 2 or both in it, because 3 plus 4 plus 5 adds to 12. So this cage, if it's got a 2 in it, the other 2 digits would have to add up to 9, and they couldn't be 3, 6. And they couldn't be 2, 7 because that would repeat the 2. So they'd have to be 1, 8. Well, 1, 8 would put a 1 in the cage, which is what I'm trying to do. Or, or 4, 5. So the only way this cage does not, well, the only way it doesn't have a 1 in it is if it's 2, 4, 5. And that will break this square. That's beautiful. So this cage does have a 1 in it. And once this cage has a 1 in it, look, where does the 1 go in? Column 6, it's not there, It's not here because of these ones, sorry. So it must be in one of those two squares, and you can see because of the 1, 9 pair it must be here, which means that's a 1 and that's a 9. That means that's a 9 and that's a 3. That's a 3 and that's a 7. And now I was about to say we're cooking with gas, or we're sucking diesel, to borrow an expression from Hastings, but we're definitely not doing any of those things because, again, I seem to have come to a dead halt. 1. Okay, let's try and use this 1 in box 7 maybe. 1's got to be in one of those two squares and therefore in one of these two squares. No, that's not how to do it. Okay. Oh dear. So now we've got to think again. So is this 11k? This 11k, or this 9 cage maybe. Let's look at the 9 cage first because I've not looked at that at all. This cannot be 1, 8 or 4, 5, so it's either 3, 6 or 2, 7. Right, so if it's 3, 6, there's a 3 here and a 6 here because we know the 3 is on the right hand side of box 5. And if it's 2, 7, look, the 2 would have to go in that square, and this would be... So we've limited these very significantly, but not significantly enough, it seems. You rotter. I have a horrible feeling I've missed something about this. Let's come back to the 11 cage then. Right, okay, so there are 2 digits I can see that I can't put in this 11 cage along with the 1. One of them is a 7, because if there's a 7 in there, there'll have to be a 3, which there can't be. The other is 5, so 7 is definitely restricted, look. So if 7 can't go in the 11 cage, 7 is in this domino. Which is lovely, actually. Look, that is what fixes this 9 cage. That gives us a 3 and a 6. This 3 gives me a 3 here as well, which might be useful. 6 is locked into one of 2 places in box 2. 7 by Sudoku has to be in exactly that square in box 5, which places it in box 6. This 6 is ruling a 6 out of that. Oh, whoopsie. This square here can only be 5 or 9 now. 9 is quite restricted in box 5 as well. 9 has to be in one of those 2 squares. This can't be 3 because we've already put 3 in the box. Ooh, now, just noticed 9s are in exactly the same rows of the grid in boxes 6 and box 9. So now the question we should ask is, where does 9 go in this row? It can't go in those 3 squares. It can't go in these 3 squares. So it must be in one of those 3. It's not there. It's not here, look, because there's a 9 in one of those 2 positions. So 9 is locked into one of 2 cells. No, it's not. No, it's not. Where does 9 go in box 1? 9 has to be... In fact, this is lovely. Where does 9 go in box 1? It has to go in those 2 squares, which means this is a 9, this is a 5. This can no longer be a 9, so this has become a 9. Now, why have I got 8s pencil marked over here? Oh, because 8s do have to live in these 3 squares, and that's the only position 8 can go in. And that seems to... Yeah, and now 5 goes in here. Okay, and now we've unwound the sort of putative swordfish we were thinking about at the start of the puzzle. So that's a 9, that's a 6, this is a 1, that gets us this triple. This square's a 1 now, this square's a 1. We need 4, 5 and 9 into those squares. It must be 5. Oh, I don't believe it. I'm not sure whether we can do this. I can't quite see how to do it. 4, 5 and 9. Right, this square is not 5. This square is not 9. This one, I'm not sure about. Oh, but there's a 2, 4 pair. That's what helps us. 9. Now there's a 4-5 pair. Whoopsie. I want to get rid of the 9 from that position and take another stare at this, because I feel like we just made a big breakthrough. Yeah, in fact, look at box 1 as well. Where does the 3 go? These two squares here are 2, 3 and 4 to complete the box, which means this domino has a 3 in it. This 3 looks at that square. 3 and 7 go in. 7 and 8 go in. 8 and 6 go in. 6 is forced into this position in the box, I think. These two squares are 2 and 4, and I can see that's going to be helpful in terms of this 5-4 pair. This square must be a gimme now. That's got to be an 8 just to complete the row. We can probably do more. I just can't quite see how to do that. Those two squares. Right, lovely. These two squares are a 2-5 pair to complete the box, but there's a 2-4 pair in column 6 already, so the 2 must live here. This is a 5. We can't put 5 in the 11 cage because they'll have to have double 5 to go with the 1, so the 5 must live down there. The 5 and the 9 go in, the 9 and the 3 go in. 3 goes here by the power of Sudoku, and that means we still need a 6 in this column, which must live there. Now there's a 6 in one of these two squares. Can it go in there? If this was 6, this would be a 1-4-6 triple. What's the options for this actually? It's either 1-4-6 or 1-2-8. If this was 1-2-8, this would have to be the 1. Okay, I'm not sure whether we can do that yet. Right, let's have a look elsewhere. Those squares are 1, 2 and 4. Must be a 1 here. Sorry, I'm trying to spot what I need to do. I'm failing miserably. What about... So these squares are 1, 4 and 6, are they, in some order? So this... But if that's 4, that would have to be a 1-6 pair, which would clash. Oh, no, look, this is better than that. This is much stronger. This 6 is very interesting, because if that, well, if this is 1-4-6, 6 will go here, and this will have to be a 1-4 domino. But that's going to give that a terminal problem, because we can't have 3 cells in the same column selected from just 2 different digits. So 6 does not live in here, so this is 6, which means that's 7. Oh, and we are suddenly off and running again. So this is 1, 2, 8. We can see that's a 1 now. That's a 1, that's a 4. This is a 2, 8 pair, which we can do. That's a 4, that's a 2, that's a 2, that's a 4. Those two squares are a 2, 3 pair, which is very nice. That gets us those. Now, have we done? Oh yeah, I think we might have cracked the back of this, to be honest. This 2 looks useful. 3 and 8 go in. Where does 8 live in this box? It must be here, which places the 6, which comes round that way, gives us the 6 and the 4, gives us a 4. That should be a 5, which looks right. Let's click tick. Yes. Wonderful. Absolutely beautiful puzzle. Really, you know, the start and the way it is coherent with the Bahamian theme is, it's just a beautiful idea, and not something you will see every day in a killer Sudoku, let me tell you. To hide the 5s, to fix this 6 cage as 2-4, to have an impact that gets you a digit here. And then, you know, the way that worked with this 9 cage was lovely. The whole thing was just a joy, start to finish, as usual, from a great, great constructor. Let me know in the comments how you got on, and thank you so much for watching. And we'll be back later with another edition, hopefully, of Cracking the Cryptic.